It's time for Health Futures with Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth. This is Arizona's only show dedicated to providing you with expert advice on how to live a longer, healthier, and happier life. To learn more, call 602-264-8009. That's 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Bob Roth.
Good afternoon. You're listening to Health Futures, taking stock in you, and it must be Friday. And indeed it is. It's Friday, January 28th, and we are winding down our first month of 2022. It's hard to believe it. And we're coming at you live from the Scottsdale Air Park studios of Money Radio, 1510 AM, 105.3 FM, and the World Wide Web, moneyradio1510.com. If this is the first time you're tuning into our show is about how our older adult population can live a healthier, happier life. And how do they do that? They do that by listening to this show. And it's not to me, it's not by listening to me, it's by listening to these incredible guests that I bring to the show. And today is no different. Meanwhile, it is January 28th, and we want to talk about a big month coming up. February is National Heart Month, and we are here to talk about women and heart disease. And for those listeners that have listened to this show, they know how important this month is for me. I got into the home care business, or should I say my family got into the home care business because of our mother. My mother, Joan Roth, in January 2nd to be exact, 1985, suffered a massive heart attack and never was quite the same. And my brothers, my dad, and I were thrusted into the role of a caregiver. And we were caregivers for my mom. And fast forward to 1994, we started Cypress Home Care Solutions to care for not only our own mom, but other moms and dads out there. And here we are 28 years later doing the same. So I am really especially fond of this topic and fond of my guests that I have here in the studio. So without further ado, I want to introduce Honor Health and the American Heart Association of Arizona. I have two incredible guests. They're a mother and daughter team. I've got Kim Post. She's the Executive Vice President and Chief Operations Officer of Honor Health, Volunteer Chair of the 2021-2022 Greater Phoenix Area Go Red for Women's Movement. Welcome to the show, Kim.
Thank you. Thanks, Bob. I'm excited to be here to talk a little bit more about all the efforts that we're putting into our partnership with the American Heart Association and the impact to our community and to our, what I hope to be impacting our employees as well.
Well, I love hearing that. And to your right, my left, is a carbon copy, a mother-daughter team. We've got Lindsey Thompson. She's the Network Director of Cardiovascular Programs at Honor Health, and she's the chair for the Inspire Red Committee, part of the Go Red movement, which includes millennial women to come together in support of the American Heart Association mission. Welcome to the show, Lindsey.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Well, it's excited to have both of you guys here. And, you know, I would really love to understand, first of all, I got a mother-daughter team here. How did you get involved in the Go Red movement this year? And certainly, you know, we want to draw attention to this disease that really for generations wasn't really talked about in terms of women. You know, I talked about this on the show a couple years ago with Dr. Martha Galati. It wasn't until like the late 90s where scientists started recognizing that this disease was impacting women. So I'll punt it over to you, Kim.
Thanks. Well, the reason why I really got involved this year, I think I've been involved with the American Heart Association, maybe in a distant way, participating in heart walks or other things that they have done for communities. And as an organization, we've always been well aligned with what they do. It helps us take better care of patients. They do a lot of research that we want to support and participate in. And we have a large service line that's really focused on heart and vascular care. So we know that we're well aligned with our mission and our values. This year was a little different for me. And I think we were talking earlier, there's not anybody that I can talk to that doesn't have some connection with heart disease. And I look back on my mom, who was quite a character, and she passed away a few years ago. but had a lot of issues related to cardiovascular care. She had a major event when she was in her 30s, and it impacted her heart and the valves that are in her heart. And she really struggled towards the end of her life with quality. And there was a lot of things that were available to her to help her live a better life. So, but I could think of many people in my family or my neighbors or friends that a very dear friend and wonderful mentor just in the last couple years had a massive heart attack. And she would be the least likely to look at to think that she would do that. So the other piece of it is the Go Red for Women movement. That we have an executive leadership team. We have a lot of very, I'll say, powerful, smart women who are part of that and who are really helping with the cause across all avenues of businesses. Healthcare is probably one of the ones we think of the most when we think about this group. So after the last couple years and what our staff has been through and what all of us have really been through with COVID, and our lives have been upended, everybody's gained a little weight, been a little less active, maybe haven't taken care of ourselves, have been under a tremendous amount of stress. I felt like this was the best year to really step out and step up and try to lead an effort that would not only help our community and our state, but also help our employees and all those other intimate people that I love so dearly. So it's going to be a real impact to our staff and to our community to really be able to participate in some of the programs that they have.
It's really amazing how people don't really realize that heart disease does affect women. And it is still the number one cause of death.
Absolutely.
Number one cause of death, and it is, as you described, it's a silent killer.
It really, with the silent killer thing, it's something that I've been in cardiovascular care for many years now, and as when I was still clinical, you start to notice that your patients get younger and younger and younger. And it's something that I think people, we women tend to be the glue that hold everything together in our families. You take care of everyone else before you. It's that whole analogy in the airplane of put your mask on first and then everyone else's. And we forget that. So I think, as my mom alluded to, that we haven't really taken good care of ourselves, but women historically are really bad at focusing on themselves and taking that time to recognize the symptoms and things like that. And we know now from all the research studies and many different things that women, historically speaking, when they come into the emergency room having symptoms of a heart attack, it doesn't look like what a man's looks like. It's very different. And a lot of times, it's finding physicians that will listen to you, because women get told a lot, oh, you're just having an anxiety attack, or you must be really stressed, or things like that. And having your voice heard as a patient is super important. So, statistically speaking, women will have to sit in the emergency room 3 hours longer than a man to get a diagnosis of a heart attack, which delays your care. We know door to balloon time, you want to have that therapy within 1 hour. And so it's always those things that compact onto each other that can be very detrimental to, our health as females. So.
Absolutely. I mean, first of all, it's incredible the amount of undertakings that most women take. And, I look over at you, Lindsey, and I know that you're a mom of young kids, and, you're a working mom as well. And, you take on a lot of the stresses that come along with that and don't necessarily have the releases sometimes that, others may have. And certainly there's that, how should I put it, that stereotype that comes with, women and hysteria, right? And, they're being just emotional. No, you need to listen to women that are telling us that their bodies are not working right.
I think the other thing right around that, the whole point of the American Heart Association and the Go Red for Women campaign really helps educate women to actually advocate for themselves in those situations, right? To help understand their risks and to understand what's happening if they do have symptoms, and be able to communicate that earlier and probably more often, so that they are actually listened to and they're not taught the traditional things.
As we get ready to take our first break, I know some of the symptoms, and Lindsey, I know you're more involved in the cardiology apart, if you would. The symptoms are different.
Very.
And I think some of them are, mimic themselves as back pains, and they could be chest pains and stuff like that. I don't know if you want to just give a couple symptoms to be kind of looking for.
The jaw pain, shoulder pain, or you have the rapid heart rate, or feeling like you're having an anxiety attack type thing too can be one of the things which is why women get misdiagnosed.
Right, and people think it's like the clutching of the chest, and it's not always that.
No.
Well, we're down one segment. We've got 2 more to go. Stick around. I have got Kim Post and Lindsey Thompson from Honor Health and the American Heart Association. We'll be right back.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures, taking stock in you. And if you're just tuning in, we're in our second segment. We're coming at you live from the Money Radio Studios, Air Park Studios, and it is January 28th, and I am really pleased to have in the studio with me, I've got Kim Post. She's the Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer of Honor Health. She's volunteer chair for the 2021-2022 Greater Phoenix Area Go Red for Women Movement, and I've got Lindsey Thompson, Network Director for Cardiovascular Programs at Honor Health, and the chair for InspireRed Committee, part of the Go Red movement, which includes millennial women to come together in support of the American Heart Association. And for those that don't know it, February is Heart Month, and we are here today to talk about women and heart disease. So I want to turn this over to you, Kim, and really talk about how did Honor Health and the American Heart Association get together and partner here in 2022?
Sure. Thanks, Bob. I think this year has been a great year for us to get focused on health and wellness, not only for our community, but for our staff as well. As everybody knows, and we're still in the middle of all the pandemic issues, and just an increased number of patients in our community that need care, and our staff has been very stressed over the last 2 years. We know that getting in touch with your numbers, I will say, for heart disease, really understanding some things that you might be able to prevent would be very important for our staff and for our community. So it's just a good time to start reconnecting and focusing on our health. So we really decided to partner with the American Heart Association to create some more awareness around getting better connected, start moving again, start focusing on health and wellness, and really starting to understand what you can do to prevent heart disease. But if you would happen to have something, then how could we manage it better and have better quality of life? So we partnered to help fundraise for these efforts. The other thing I think that the American Heart Association is very much focused on research as well and funding the right research, and they've done a lot through the Go Red for Women to fund research on women, because we know that for us we exhibit different symptoms. We may have warning signs that are a little bit different than maybe our husbands or a significant other that's male, and so we need to understand that so that we can better articulate and really start to understand what we can do to manage our health better. So the other things that they offer are really programs and services that are very well researched, and we know that the outcomes are good and they can make an impact. And they spend a lot of time doing that so that when we partner on something, we know it's going to make a big hit to our staff or whoever we offer it to in our community. So we have 3 things that we've really been focused on. We started right before Thanksgiving with 21 days of gratitude. Gratitude, actually, people who express gratitude on a daily basis live a better life and are healthier.
So true.
It's very true. Yep. And it was probably it was the simplest thing that we did to focus on gratitude for 3 weeks. And it was overwhelmingly so positively received from our staff.
Yeah, we had, kind of an unexpected response to it because, with everyone being just stuck in COVID land that we've been in, we thought it'd be really important to have some positivity going on. And it was a great kind of kickoff campaign into the other ones that we've done. The second one that we did was a campaign where we partnered with Honor Health's food bank, Desert Mission, and we did a Stocking Healthy Pantries campaign for the community, just focusing on items that are actually more geared towards heart healthy concepts. Desert Mission does an excellent job of providing food to their clients that is geared towards being healthy and not just the typical, like people think to donate ramen noodles or things like that. So we focused more on those items and educating the community. We did a great campaign with Fox 10 News and the morning show with them and things like that. And that kind of took us through the holidays. And now we're starting our check, change, control campaign that's geared towards our staff and our volunteers at Honor Health. And it has been, I always get excited when we have, 200 people wanting to be involved. And last week we were up to almost 450 people enrolled, and we haven't even started yet. So
wow.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible to see, people wanting to really realizing that, hey, maybe I should take a little bit more closer look at what my blood pressure is, or noticing that through this whole last 2 years of craziness in life, that it's starting to slip. And so we're really excited to kick that campaign off and offer some educational in-services by our physicians to our staff, doing live webinars and ways that they can check their blood pressure at work, and really, kind of just getting everyone engaged. And we're just so excited to have that many people involved in it.
Well, first of all, I love the 21 days of gratitude. Mm-hmm. I mean, and how good that feels. I know it feels great for me, and I'm sure everyone that's listening probably feels the same way, just to express your appreciation for the work and the things that people do for you. But, also, you talked about the stress over these last 2 years, and a lot of people don't talk about the other pandemic. And that other pandemic is that people weren't going to the doctor.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And people weren't getting seen when they were having issues because they were fearing the COVID and getting the virus. And how many people are in a much worse place because they did not get and seek help.
I think that is absolutely number one on our list as you start to look at, especially workforce. There is nothing that means more to Honor Health than the people who help us deliver care for our community. And so as you look around and you see how stressed and how hard people have been working, I think that the reason people are signing up for it so readily, I think it's probably over 500 because we haven't looked this week, but and we've barely done anything. It's because they know they want to reconnect and start to focus on feeling better, and they want to focus on something else to move forward. And so you check your blood pressure several times a week. You log it into a computer program that is supported by the American Heart Association. They send you tips and hints to live a better life and little reminders about stress. And if you would happen to have a high blood pressure, then we have the physician workforce to be able to get you into someone to start helping to manage that. A lot of people don't know that they have an issue because they don't check. And so this is really helping us help them realize, if they do, that there's ways in which we can manage it, because there's nothing worse than having it and not knowing it for a long period of time and letting it wear on your health. So we're very excited about that and what it means to our employees and our volunteers who have really helped us through all this.
And, Kim, you'd bring up the employees. I mean, I can't, I have a daughter who's a nurse, and I know that they're on the front line. And, predominantly, even still to this day, women make up most of the nursing field.
Yep, 85%.
And they're the ones that, many of them are, raising children and trying to work and seeing death like they've never seen before.
Yeah. So I'm a nurse. I don't think I mentioned that before,
no, you
but
didn't.
I'm very, very proud to be a nurse. I've been a nurse for 40 years. And I would say, besides marrying my husband, who I've also been with for about 40 years, the best decision I ever made, right? It's such a wonderful profession. There's so many opportunities, but that's another reason, right? 85% of nurses are women, and they have been, trudging through this and helping us, helping care for the community, and they've just been so iconic in this whole thing. I think the Go Red for Women movement really can help, I hope, that workforce as well, and really focusing on that.
Yeah, I think, that's another reason why I really feel strongly that Honor Health and aligning with Go Red for Women was perfect timing for us.
Yeah.
Our mission, vision, and values align so closely with what our goals are in the community, and really kind of one of our goals within, I'm ingrained in cardiology all day, every day. That's where I live, that's where I work, and I'm very proud to do that. But one of our goals is really trying to, we recognize that there is a very big gap in the care for women. So, focusing on that this year is a big priority, and we can kind of talk about that in a little bit too.
Yeah, we can. Got a little Coldplay taking us out here at halftime, but I will say this. I mean, I think people don't really realize the effects that this pandemic has had on the front line.
Yeah.
And the fact that you have 500 already signed up, that's phenomenal.
It's a big deal.
How many employees do you have altogether?
We have about 11,000.
Wow. That's really nice. And it's not even February.
It's not even February.
It will be next Tuesday. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth, and we are down one segment. We got 2 more to go. Stick around. Honor Health and American Heart Association. Go Red movement. We'll be right back.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. If you are just tuning in, we're in our second segment, and we are talking February being National Heart Month. That's next week. And we're here today to talk about women and heart disease, and no one better here to talk about this than Honor Health, Kim Post and Lindsey Thompson. Kim is the Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer of Honor Health, and Lindsey is the Network Director for Cardiovascular Programs at Honor Health, and she is chairing the Inspired Committee for the part of the Go Red Heart movement. So I really want to talk about now in this third segment, I want to talk about really women and heart disease, and really, what do people need to know?
Lots of things.
Yeah, I think so. I think, as women, we get bombarded with information about breast cancer and all the different types of cancers that we should prevent. And that's been out there and is wonderful and has actually been shown to help change behavior, right? Get screenings more often, do things to prevent it. And we don't really hear as much about heart disease because, again, I think, it used to be a man's disease.
Right.
And so what we want to do is really help people understand that actually heart disease in women is the #1 killer across the United States. So we have a lot of work to do, and some of those things that you might do for other diseases actually are included in prevention for heart disease. So we want to get a lot more information out about that.
Yeah, just even on a local level, some of the statistics from the AHA here, they talk about, they've done some research within our community, and women in South Phoenix versus women living in North Scottsdale have a life expectancy. A woman in Scottsdale will live 14 years longer than a woman in South Phoenix.
That's incredible.
Which is just insane to me, and just thinking of how we care for our patients. So, with that in mind, focusing on access to care, but really there's a lot of things that women can do now. And it's not just women who are, they think of it as an old person's disease and things like that. Women my age, in their 30s, women who have issues during pregnancy. A lot of times that if they're going to have issues later on, they will likely have some issues during pregnancy. So focusing on those things and creating ways that we can care for those women. So knowing your numbers, watching your blood pressure, knowing what your blood glucose or your blood sugar levels are super, super important, of just foundational information of taking charge of your health. And then things that we're doing within our community is, we are really focusing on advancing the cardiovascular care for women in particular. Statistically speaking, we know that cardiovascular research in general, less than 30% is dedicated towards researching women in cardiovascular care, which is astounding, knowing what we know about all the research done for other things like breast cancer and all those things. So we're really committing to try to improve that ratio especially within Honor Health. And we're getting ready to launch in March a dedicated women's cardiovascular clinic at Honor Health that is going to be providing care for not just preventative medicine for women, but also focusing on a cardio-obstetrics piece as well, because as I just said, women who have issues or heart issues during pregnancy, that can be life and death, or those things just kind of pop up out of nowhere. I myself had the same issue of not having any heart issues at all, and I was pregnant with my daughter, and I was barely pregnant and having insanely high heart rates and fainting from it and things like that. And so really providing a way that we can provide timely and quick access to care for those women in a comprehensive way, and not just dealing with that piece of it, right? There's so many other things that go along with women in their cardiovascular care, the psychosocial pieces. Mental well-being is a huge, important piece of it that we're really passionate about, and focusing on the whole picture and not just that one little problem right there. So it's super important to us.
You just covered a lot of stuff.
You really did. And,
Yeah.
and that's not the first time I've heard about pregnancy and the connection to cardiac challenges that women have later in life. And is it just related to heart issues during pregnancy, or is it like preterm labors and other issues that women have? And I know that a lot of this research is only really 20 years new. I mean, there's not a whole lot of data.
Yeah. You're right. There's not a ton of data on it. And I can't speak, in terms of for sure, but I can speak to my own experience. I did have a baby that was a month early due to all the contributing factors during my pregnancy. And, it's a scary time. And so we want to make sure we care for those patients. At Honor Health, we delivered over 6,000 babies last year.
How exciting. I love that.
So we have a good spot of people. There's, a lot of women that do have pre-existing conditions. There's congenital issues that can contribute to them wanting to get pregnant. So making sure that we have that side of it covered, and that they know that they're well taken care of, so that they can focus on expanding their family and having a good, healthy pregnancy is super important to us.
And I would think today, if a woman does have these challenges, they're duly noted.
Yes.
And their primary care physicians are like, okay, we're going to watch you and check your heart and making sure that you don't have heart disease or preventing heart disease.
I think, too, we're blessed with a lot of physician talent that has really focused on women as it relates to heart disease, and a couple female cardiologists. One, Christina Royce, who's done a lot of work around understanding women and heart disease, and now has really focused her entire practice on that, who will be in our clinic. So I think having the physician talent to actually access to maybe get a little deeper dive if you're having issues is really important. The other thing I think for me, Lindsey's in the 30s crowd, and I'm not in the 30s crowd. I'm a little bit older than that, and I think I'm a little bit more aligned with your audience, perhaps.
Me too.
And so some of the things that I think I have been trying to set a good example on, again, getting lost in all the stress of life, and focusing on so many other things that we've been focusing on as a nation, not alone a community, really trying to reconnect with exercise. I bought a certain bike. I won't advertise for them, but I bought that. I got my plan refocused. I started to move again, and I think that's really important. And for women who are in the 50s and 60s age group, it's a great idea to sort of balance your exercise, because this is kind of interesting. When you start to do it like you thought you were in your 30s or 40s, it's different when you're in your 50s and 60s. And so they recommend that you balance some aerobic activity with some weightlifting and start to work at your core so your balance is good, so you don't fall. People fall, of all ages, so we shouldn't think because we're not 70 or 80 that we're not going to fall. And really increasing flexibility. So having a balanced exercise routine, all it takes is about 30 minutes a day, and it doesn't even have to be all at once, right? Research has said if you do 15 in the morning and 15 at night, it's just as good. So get moving. And I think that's super, super important. Eating a healthy diet, that's easier said than done, because there's so many ways in which you can sort of plan around nutrition. There's so many resources out there. We have a lot of very talented dietitians if you're interested in getting in touch with a plan, but really starting to eat a little bit more heart healthy and be mindful of that, I think, is another thing that women our age can do. And in that, watching your weight, getting your numbers. You know, you don't have to come to our heart clinic, but it'd be great if you did, because you'd get a female cardiologist that really focuses on that. But having that conversation, I think, Bob, you said it well, with your primary care physician, right? Have that. What's my cholesterol?
Right.
What's my lipid profile look like? What other things can I do? What about my blood sugar? Right. That's a very impactful thing that a lot of people don't know.
You know, you hit upon a number of things that I really want to do a deeper dive into in our fourth segment. But, you know, when people think of heart issues or heart challenges or heart health, they think of diet and they think of exercise. And those are really two things that we can control. And, you know, we live in the great state of Arizona, and the weather is perfect today, and it's only going to get better from here on out. You know, we're hopefully done our winter, but if we're not, we only have just days or maybe a week or two left. But this is the best time of year, and to get outdoors and really just breathe in the air and move. I think that's it. And you know, speaking of move, this is a movement, the Go Red movement, and I've got these two wonderful ladies here in the studio with me. I've got Kim Post, and I've got Lindsey Thompson. We're down 3 segments. We are talking heart health, and we're also talking about the Go Red for Women movement. 3 down, 1 more to go. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures, taking stock in you. We're here in our 4th segment, and if you're just tuning in, we're featuring that February is National Heart Month. And we are here today to talk about women and heart disease. And I'm so pleased to have in the studio with me, I've got Kim Post. She is the Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer of Honor Health. She's also the volunteer chair for the 2021-2022 Greater Phoenix Area Go Red for Women movement. I also have Lindsey Thompson here in the studio. She's the Network Director, Cardiovascular Programs at Honor Health, and she's the chair for the Inspired Committee for the part of the Go Red movement. Mother-daughter team, 4th segment, and this is a topic that is near and dear to me just because my mom is a person that I've lost due to heart disease, and we are talking about women and heart disease. By the way, if you missed the first 3 segments, go up to our website at cypresshomecare.com, click on the media button, 3rd button down is radio show. You'll catch this show and many, many more. So when we were wrapping up our 3rd segment, Kim, you were talking about tips for women and what they could do to prevent heart disease. And of course, what comes to mind is exercise and diet. And, you know, there's always that, weighing what is better than the other, but I will tell you, it's a combination of both. And I see so many people that exercise and they don't lose weight and they don't get to where they're not where they want to be because they're not changing their diet.
Yeah.
And so much of it, and I'm holding up for our listeners a bottle of water, so much of it is drinking water and not soda, and eating healthy and moving.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I think it has to be simplified, right? I think whatever we can do to move is really important, right? And so some people think they have to do a certain thing. Maybe they have to run. Well, I'm never going to run. Maybe they,
Neither am I.
right?
Not
They're
unless
going
I'm
to,
on fire.
right?
Or if somebody's chasing me.
Yeah,
right.
That's what I was saying.
So I think it's to give people a wide variety of choices that they can choose from to have a balanced way of moving. And sometimes it's just as simple as a walk to help us clear our minds, or just to get moving in some way or some fashion that you can do. I talked earlier, I bought one of those bikes. I do that because it's easy and it's right there, and there's all kinds of different workouts you can do. So it gives me a little bit of variety, but it fits with my busy schedule. So I
Right.
think really that's the one thing. If you're a mom of little kids, or you have a big job like I do, you can't always be at a class at 5 o'clock. Although it's fun, it's not necessarily it's not going to be feasible. The other thing I think is another impossible one is finding the right lane for nutrition. And so a lot of people, there's so much available on the internet. You can pick all kinds of diets. We don't really need a diet. We need a way of life.
Thank you.
And
It's a
so
lifestyle.
it is a lifestyle, but there's still tons of things that can guide you, and it gets confusing. And so I think sitting down with a nutritionist is a really good option, whether it's through your gym. There's lots of nutritionists that are available, but just help somebody sort of map out what you need to do to live to eat healthier. And I think that's something that everybody can do. And I think the other thing, and it's incredibly important to know what your numbers are. I always hear people, they'll say they might be overweight or in bad shape, and they'll say, but there's nothing wrong with me. Well, there may not be anything wrong with you because you've never even looked for it, right? What is your blood sugar? What is your blood pressure? What are some things that maybe are silent for a very long time until they aren't? And we see that a lot in healthcare is people just, it's like if it's not broke, don't fix it. If you don't really look at it, you don't know if it's broke. So you've got to start to seek out that information so that you can make some change.
Some of that, you just touched on, well, there's nothing wrong with me. The other big component too is family history, genetic component. There's been a lot of research done on a lot of that stuff now, and there is a huge genetic link between cardiovascular disease and if you're going to get it or not. So understanding that, and I know that some people are like, well, I know my family was, my parents were not healthy, but I'm fine. You still, it's the silent killer called that for a reason. So I think focusing and understanding that and understanding what your family history is. One of the things that we're focusing on in our women's clinic is genetic testing, because there are certain genetic markers that are indicative of true cardiovascular risk factors, and really right down to if you need to be on a medication, which medication is going to work best for you based upon your genetic profile.
It's interesting you say that because I shared at the beginning of the story about my mom, and my dad also has heart disease. It's probably been every bit of 20 years now since I've been seeing a cardiologist, and I got on a low-dose statin. My numbers weren't bad. They really weren't. They didn't really require me to be, but because I had family history, my cardiologist says, I want to get this started because of your family history. Your father has heart disease. You lost your mom to heart disease. Let's get you started. So there's such a great correlation to that.
Yeah, one of our doctors, Dr. Ryzik, who I'm sure you know, he makes jokes that he thinks that statins should be put in our water, and because he's like, everyone should be on one. Everyone
Everybody
should be
could
on one.
benefit.
Like fluoride, right?
Yeah, that's what he said. It's the new fluoride. So yeah, really understanding that component is just so important, and that's an often lost thing because you can have someone who runs marathons and does all kinds of things.
Gym fix.
Yep, and they can have a massive heart attack in their 40s, and they're like, well, how did this happen? And then you look at their family history, and they had, a parent who died, had massive MI at, age 50, and you're like, well.
And it's not just heart disease. It's everything.
Yeah.
There's so much that we know genetically. I mean, the following month, March, is Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month. And if you have family history, you should be getting colonoscopies long before 50 because you have family history. So much is genetics, and you need to know what your genealogy is. And if you don't, then maybe you should take one of those 21andMe tests and one of those tests, or go to see a geneticist and have some testing done.
Yeah.
I want to talk about a little bit about food, and really, I think one of the things that's happened during these last 2 years is that people are starting to cook again. People are not going out, which is a good thing. So there's so much out there. People talk about diets, but I mean, the internet is so rich and full of recipes, and there are some companies that will deliver some foods that are not prepared but already portion controlled, and they tell you how to make them. And I won't advertise those companies, but there's about a half a dozen or some that are always on my email or streaming on my digital platforms, or I'm getting in the mail. So there's options that are out there as it relates to healthy eating.
There is a lot of things that you can do, and I think one of the biggest things is people forget the impact that food has on your body. in all ways and shapes and forms. There's, anti-inflammatory things, responses to certain foods. There's just all kinds of things that people don't really understand. And so I think two things that I've heard in the past that, really resonate with me in terms of food is food really is medicine. There's people that talk about there's certain diets that they've done during cancer treatment and they've had better outcomes because of that, eating fresh foods, organic, homegrown vegetables and things like that. So there is a piece on that as well. And then also, just feeding your body and fueling your body is a huge thing, because I'm super guilty of it. I'm genetically lucky that I haven't truly struggled with my weight, but it is something that in terms of, I don't really I'm lucky enough to eat what I want, but I also have noticed a difference when I do eat healthier of how you feel mentally, physically, and things like that, that you're better able to manage your health that way.
Absolutely. So I want to cover one last topic before we leave, sleep. How, and the detriments that are involved if you're not getting enough of it.
So it's interesting, and that is something women are not very good at. I used to say, wow, when you hit 50, I guess you don't have to sleep all night, right? I just thought it was an age thing. And then you also find yourself saying, as you're raising your family or you're so busy in your career that, I really only need 4 or 5 hours, right? Well, you can get by with it, but it isn't good for you. And sleep is one of the most important things for our overall wellness. And it is a cumulative, right? If you cut yourself short of what you should get is probably 8 or 9 hours.
That's what they say.
And you're not a hero. If I have a friend of mine who'll say, "Oh, I only need 4 hours." I'm like, "Well, actually, you need 8, and you get 4." And so that's every day you're putting a chink in your armor because you're not getting what you need, and it does wear on you, your ability to manage stress, your alertness, your health and wellness, lots of things. Your blood sugar. Like that's directly related to your blood sugar. So sleep is really, really important, and it's not cool anymore to say I can get by on 4 hours or less, and I still hear that. So it's incredibly important too as you get to older, even as women, we really do need probably 8 or 10 hours of sleep, and if you miss that for several days in a row, it's accumulative. So meaning like it's not yesterday I didn't get anything, so today if I get 8 I'm good. No. You got to catch up on it, right?
You do.
And in order to lose weight, in order to have a healthy weight, I should say, and manage stress, I think it's incredibly important and very underrated.
Through the kindness of Honor Health, I got introduced to Dr. Michael Bruce, and he is known as the sleep doctor. I had him here on the show, and he was talking about there's no substitute. You have to make your environment conducive to sleep. You need to turn off all your electronics.
Yes.
Yeah.
Put your phone in another room. Turn off the television so you can get that restful sleep.
The other thing I think is important, I just saw a presentation on sleep as it relates to leadership. It was very interesting, and the topic was on there, and I thought, well, that doesn't even fit. But it does fit, right? Because this scientist said she's out of Harvard, and she does a lot of studies on sleep and the impact for our ability to manage stress, and the importance of a power nap, even in the afternoon, for 15 minutes. You teach yourself how to do that. So that's another thing. And then if you do have any issues with sleep that's related to snoring, you could have sleep apnea. That's very, very, very impactful to heart disease. And that's something that would need to have immediate follow-up with your primary care.
So sorry to say that we're winding it down. How can our listeners get involved? Is there a website or a phone number they can call?
Honorhealth.com. So, and we have a dedicated cardiovascular page on there where you can find all of our programs. And then we have a phone number for linking you with physicians as well.
Perfect.
And the American Heart Association, just to put a plug there, they have a wonderful website. And if there's anything you want to do to volunteer, our Heart Walk is coming up. That's always fun to get a group together to fundraise, but also get out and enjoy some fresh air.
And you can get that on Honor Health's website as well as the American Heart Association?
That one is just on the American Heart Association.
American Heart Association.
Yeah.
Well, Kim and Lindsey, mother and daughter, thank you for donning my studio. It's such a pleasure to have you on. Make it a great day. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
We'll be back next Friday.
There's no place like home. You've been listening to Bob Roth's Health Futures. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, Call Cypress Home Care Solutions at 602-264-8009. That's 602-264-8009. Or visit cypresshomecare.com. Be sure to join Health Futures with Bob Roth every Friday at noon, right here on Money Radio 1510 and 105.3 FM.